right, folks, we're back for another episode of Morphy's Games of Chess. This time, game 62, the third match game held in February of 1859. All right, between Mongredien and Morphy. Mongredien has the white pieces, and he starts it off with the queen pawn. Okay, now, Morphy's favorite defense of his, he wants to play the Dutch. Okay, but what he does is he plays e6 first. Now, I just want to point something out. You know, the normal moves, modern time, simplicity is the Dutch against the queen pawn, right, is f5. And then you usually get your c4, okay, white taking control of key squares in the center, right? And then you continue with your e6, okay? But look at this. Look at how Morphy starts it off. d4, e6. Okay, you say, well, big deal. When he plays c4, you play f5, and you got the same thing, transposition of moves, right? Exactly. But what if white was to play e4 now? He knocked you for a loop if you don't know your French defense, because that's what he just twisted and turned you. He psychs you out, because if you think he's going to follow at c4, you go, I'll play the Dutch defense. So you start off with e6, and then he plays this. You can't play the French anymore. I mean, this might be nuts. Like, you might do, so I've seen this line. Look at this. Then he takes this one. Then you develop this guy here, believe it or not. And then if he takes this one, then you got, look at this. You gave up 3 pawns, right? But look at this, folks. You got 3 minor pieces developed. Right? But okay, you gave up 3 pawns for the 1. So you know, it's like you gambited a pawn. You gambited 2 pawns, I should say. And I mean, you know, that's tough. You got the time versus the material here. Crazy gambit. I've seen this on the internet. I don't even know what they call it. I don't know if it's, I mean, look, at lower levels, I'm sharing this again with you. At lower levels, under 2,000, this could be good to play. Because, trust me, there's so many mistakes and errors made, you know. But at the high levels, those pawns, folks, those masters, they're going to slowly strangle you, you know, like a python. They're going to slowly strangle you, that material will slowly unwind their white pieces, okay, maybe trade here and there, give up a pawn for time, get some time back. And the next thing you know, you're in an endgame and you're lost, okay? But even then, who knows? You tactical magicians out there, go give it a whirl, even at the high levels. You know, your opponent, even if he's a grandmaster, ain't going to be expecting this. And I doubt that he'd even take the third offered pawn over here. I doubt that he'd even take it, you know, when you play the bishop out. But, hey, maybe he'd be daring, you know, and he'd do it. Let's see you prove it, tough guy, right? All right, so anyway, this is the little bonus I threw in there, crazy gambit. So I mean, you can face it with this crazy gambit idea, but most high, you know, at the high level, if you're gonna play e6 against d4, you gotta know it, folks. You gotta know the French now, because what else do you have? He transposed it into a king pawn game. It might as well have started e4, e6, d4, right? It's the same thing now. And then you would have to follow it, your d5. e6 in the French is, e6 is played to support the d5 pawn push. All right, now whether he takes, he advances, or whether he plays the knight, who knows, right? A whole labyrinth of other analysis, right? Opening theory. But anyway, we got Morphy, we got Mongredien here, Mongredien, however you say his name, right? Paul and Augustus, here we go. D4, Morphy with E6. Trust me, folks, he's ready to play it if he needed. Look at this, Shredder wants to do it. Shredder says, let's see if we can knock black for a loop. We'll transpose it to a king pawn game. Morphy would know the French, he used it before. But, okay. Augustus goes ahead with c4, right? And here you go. You got Morphy with f5, right? Okay. So now, interesting game unfolds. Here we go. We're going to get into it now. Okay, we start off here interesting. Very strange. You got F4 here. Not a common move. As far as I know, back in the day, they give this move a question mark, folks. Question mark on move 3 already. Now, in modern time, I don't know. Maybe this is tried. Who knows? But back then, they figured this not so great. Now, what does it do? Well, Morphy playing like Shredder. Knight F6. Okay. Controlling now. E4 has fallen into Black's hand. E4, folks, is what? We've talked about it before. No pawns can protect the E4 square anymore for White, right? His D pawn has moved past D3. His F pawn is passed. No one can protect this square. It's an outpost, folks. Look at this. It's an outpost by move 3 already. Black has taken control of E4, a central square. Beautiful idea. Now the game really, you'd love this, folks, because now you got a simple plan, and sometimes it's all you need. You know, the opening, your simple strategy, control a key square. You see it at the highest levels. Just focus on a key square in the center and just gain control of it and hold it. That's your focal point. That's just your outpost, your strong point in the game now. So Morphy placed the knight, natural development to F6, and the pawn on F5, and the knight now control E4. Now look at the difference for Augustus here. He brings the knight to F3, but he doesn't have control of E5 because Morphy could always play D6. Knock him out of there. We still have this D pawn to control that, so it's not an outpost. E5 is not an outpost yet for White. Okay, so anyway, now you got Morphy playing consistent move with the idea of controlling E4. B6. Now you'd say, how is that consistent with controlling E4? Well, we're going to show you now. But before we do, a little note here. Augustus plays A3. Okay? Now, the move here, B6, is for this. Bishop to B7. Controlling E4 again. Look at how they combine, folks. Look at the pawns. Right, you got this pawn here controlling C6, controlling D5, controlling E4, light square pawn chain controlling these light squares in the center, right? Combining with the bishop, combining with the knight over here, folks. Look at the knight also controlling key squares. Now this one, the C pawn, you know, is also, it's in a fight with D5, but not E4. So this would be the move, right? But guess what? Morphy doesn't play that yet. Why? Because you can't fly on autopilot, folks. What was Mongredion's last... I'm still having trouble with that name. I really feel awkward saying it. Mongredion's last move was A3, right? What's he doing, folks? You can't fly on autopilot because, you know, then he could possibly play B4, A3, supporting B4. You know, remember, Black's got this bishop, so he had to support that B pawn with A3 first. But now, see what he's doing? He's gaining control with key squares on the queen side. Queen side, you know, space for White. You know, so Morphy decides, it's still early. All right, he plays A3. I'm not going to waste time by playing A5, and I'm going to make sure he doesn't grab this and grab queen side, you know, space. I don't want to just abandon that hole. I'm focusing on E4, yes, but I don't want to just give him the queen side, you know. So he plays A5. No one lost time. They both made silly A-pawn moves, okay? So there's no loss of time. And now Black can continue with his plan of playing Bishop B7 next, okay? And this is what happens. You got the other knight coming out for Augustus. And then there you go, Morphy following up with Bishop to B7, light square control in the center, controlling E4 outpost. Okay, here we go. Look at this. So now he plays E3, preparing to get the bishop out, his light square bishop, right? And look at this, Morphy already ready to do that. Bishop to E7, bishop to E2. Why are they doing that, folks? Well, here we go. You see why. They both castle now. See, you get that king tucked away in the center, out of the center. Get him tucked in the corner safe from all the action going on. It's closed right now, folks. The pawns haven't traded. There's no open files, but it could always change. You want to get your king tucked in the corner for safety. All right, so now you got an interesting move. Look at this. This is interesting. We're always talking about these silly wasting time pawn moves. Morphy with h6, but you'd wonder why. Why would he do that? Okay, again, this is not an open game, folks. This started off as a queen pawn game. Okay, and usually queen pawn games they don't open up as quick. You get many games where the pawns are all locked up. Okay, it's a slower developing game. Not as much tactics in the opening. More strategic, positional. Okay, so why would Morphy play h6? I'm always warning that it's a waste of time. Yes, but this isn't an open game. It's a little slower to develop. Okay, closed. It's a closed game, as they say. Pawns have not traded off. Files are not open, right? So he has time to play a6, and it's all part of the strategy. Why does he do it? Well, his bishop is on b7, as we stated earlier, on this beautiful diagonal. Let's just make this move for him. Beautiful diagonal, right? Now, because it's over here, it's not over here. And that makes sense because he doesn't have much of a future with his pawn chain. All three pawns blocking his development. It only makes sense to bring it there. But because it's on b7, realize that what Morphy wants to do, where's he going to put the knight? Where is he going to develop this guy, the queen knight, right? Where's he going to put him? If he puts him up here, well, should have touched it for a second. Maybe it's not a great move right now. But it could always be harassed, maybe later, by this pawn coming up. And where does it go, folks? The bishop is on e7. He can't leap over here. He doesn't have that option. He'd either have to go back, which would be a waste of time, right? Or he'd have to go here. Now, look at the future for him. Not too great. Now he's on the edge. You know, he doesn't want to come to c6, folks. What he wants to do is Morphy wants to play this one up, right? And then develop. You can maybe see what's going to happen. Let me just make a move, right? And then he wants to develop the knight here. But if he wants to develop the knight there, d6 would be the move. But look at, like Shredder found it just a second ago. I mean, now he likes this. But look, now with this move, knight to g5, you're attacking this pawn because the bishop is not originally here anymore. So that pawn right now is hanging, right? It's hanging and it's kind of awkward. White's threatening to win the exchange with knight takes e6. All right, so he'd have to move the queen to protect it, right? He can't even move the king up because the knight controls f7 also. So who else could protect? I mean, was he going to go here? And this is like, you're going backwards now. You put him here for a purpose. He's doing great on this diagonal. No, you can't bring him back. You'd have to move the queen. But now you're moving the queen, and look at what happens. Where did you want to put the knight? You wanted to put the knight. You wanted to put the knight here. And if you want to bring it here, now you're blocking your own defense of the deep pawn. You're all screwed up. You see what I'm saying? You can't even, your strategy, your opening, you're not making sense. Maybe I'm not making sense. I don't know. Is it me? Right? So, anyway. Morphy plays to avoid all that. You didn't understand anything I just said? Basically, he wants to play d6 to develop his knight to d7, but then white could be a real nuisance attacking that e-pawn, which is now undefended, right? Okay. Because the light square bishop is on b7, not on c8. Okay, we're defend e6. All right. So anyway, what does he do, folks? Before d6, he decides to play h6 to keep the knight from coming here to attack this guy. All right. So now, after that, what does Mongredient do? Well, he plays, I believe it's b3. Where are we? What move? Right? 10. Move 10. There you go. b3, because Mongredient wants to develop the bishop to b2. All right. Here comes Morphy, right? d6, nice. No knight could come over here to harass this pawn. All right, now we're going to bring our knight to D7 next. Okay, here comes White developing his bishop. Last of the minor pieces, beautiful. He brings it to B2, and here comes Morphy with knight to D7. And they both developed all their minor pieces, okay? All right, here we go. Mongolian playing Rook to C1 with a possibility, you know, you're trying to predict where maybe the open file will be on the C file. It's common that opens up, but there is another idea here. You want the rooks on the open files, and there is a good chance that the C file in the queen pawn games opens up. But there is another idea, and this is to bring the rook to C2 and swing it over to the king side. Okay, you're going to see how Augustus follows through with this idea. All right, so here we go. Now we got Morphy with a king move. King to H7. All right, you'll see what that's about soon. That's going to unfold. See, it's funny how this is like a coiled spring, folks. They're both maneuvering, and then it's going to just like rip open and all. You know, you're going to wonder why are they making these moves right now. You're going to see why as it starts to unfold. It's a strategic battle. This one. It's harder to understand than an open game, because open is direct, tactical. Us lower rated players can easily see what's being threatened, what they're trying to do. Okay, but this is a little harder. These closed games are a little more frustrating for players that are learning to understand, because you know there's very deep stuff going on, and it's not as easy to see. So anyway, the king moves up to H7. Okay, and now you got Mongolian playing bishop to D3. Okay, now Morphy, you see that bishop is bearing down on his king now that it's on H7. So he plays this move, G6. It supports that F pawn, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens now. Watch this. So now you got Augustus playing H3. Okay, and here you got Morphy. Common move in the Dutch, queen to E8. Usually you see that, and then the queen wants to swing to the king side, and try to get the attack knight to G4, and next thing you know they're attacking H2 and stuff. But it doesn't. This game doesn't unfold quite like that. But here we go, queen to E8, and now you got Augustus playing his queen to E1. Now Augustus playing that move. You'll notice the support in this pawn, the E pawn, the E3 pawn, to be pushed to E4. That's what White's going to play here, like this, right? See, there you go. Shredder sees it. Play this guy. He's got the queen. He's got the queen, the bishop, and the knight all supporting the E4 pawn push. He can do it. He's got 3 on it. So, like, if you see here after they trade, just to do it quick, look, trade, there you go. And now, White has, you can see, White has more space. He has more space. Black's whole bread and butter was the E4 control, but now he traded the F pawn off, so he doesn't really control that. You know, he'd have to maybe play the D pawn up and try to control it with a pawn on the D5. And then maybe sink a knight onto E4 again. You know, if you can, gain control of that outpost. You know, right now he can't even do this. He's hanging the E6 pawn. Right, that's why the bishop moves. I mean, at this point it would be no good. Look at this. Look, he's already building up. What is this pawn, folks? Where do we classify that in other games? That's a backward pawn. No other brothers can help him out. There's no one on F7, no one on D7 to help protect him. He's just dangling in the wind, right? You're going to need your pieces to protect it. They're babysitting the pawn. What are they not doing, folks? They're not putting pressure on the opponent. They're not attacking. You're already behind the 8 ball. And the reason why you're behind the 8 ball is because White's got the open E file to bear down on that backward pawn. You get it? That's why it's so weak. So this would really be an advantage, even though the evaluation is under a pawn. You know, that's tough to hold. I don't even think he's going to be able to. Look at this. Already he lost it, okay? All right, well, he gains that one. So it's still a fight. Who knows? But, you know, these are the ideas. And now we traded on e4. This is what Augustus is going for. He's trying to support his e4 pawn push. He'd love to rip open the e-file, and black would be laden with a backward e6 pawn, right? So white, you know, if you take here, he wouldn't even trade down. I guess, okay, he'd go for this one. He'd go after the f pawn. He could protect it like this, and then, you know, now you got, you know, there would really, it's basically the same idea. I mean, you know, you still got the open file for white, and you got this backward e pawn for black. So black has got, you know, the handicap here. White's got the space advantage. You know, it's totally different than in this scenario with the pawn on f5. Before, white could trade it off. That's the whole key. Trade off that. That's the only advanced pawn for black on the 4th rank. You see that? It's the only one, in that e4 square now falls, you know, without pawn control. The white's minor pieces can now go there. He lost his grip on control of e4. Get it? That's what black is playing for. So you never want to place rook to c8. I had to throw in a dumb move, right, to show you that. So what does Morphy do? Shredder sees it. Knight to e4. Keep control of that square. Don't let him push that pawn up and trade him off. You want to keep your f pawn, right? F5 pawn. So you throw the knight in there, baby. Look at this. Now what? Now what does he do, right? Knight to e4. Here's a note from the old masters, if you think I'm making it up. Look, the game is a kind into which Morphy seldom allowed himself to be in. It now grows more interesting. Black's last move stops the threatened e4. Okay, that was the threatened e4 move. In reply, if pawn to d5, then bishop to f6. Let's see if they do it. I think Shredder will find it eventually. I mean, this is what the old masters show. Okay? He even says to take, but if you take that knight, that bishop, the dark square bishop, well, look at this. He'd take with the queen. Wait, would he take with the rook? Why would he do that? Because he takes first here. Look at this. You get an in-between move. No, here you go. You threaten mate with the queen, right? Queen takes, threatening mate on g7. All right, then you could do this. And okay, so you get to force them off, I guess. You get to force off the bishops. I was going to say, that dark square bishop, folks, would be very strong for white. But, okay, black gets to trade them off. And the knight could come to the outpost here. Artificial outpost, because this pawn is here. But white has an a pawn. I don't know. Can he even? No, we're attacking. All right, we're gaining tempo on the bishop. So he'd move that, and then maybe he would threaten. Maybe he would threaten to. Oh, look at this. Looks like black's doing pretty good here. Look, he's got the edge actually. Taking with check, you're winning pawns, right? You got a nice outpost for the knight. Looks like d5's gonna fall. I think he's got to avoid. He's got to, let's see. Yeah, the rook's going to come here. Oh, he could take good check. Okay. Then he goes there. Takes the knight. Wow, look at this, folks. He would take, because if he takes here, you get to take the rook. And I guess this is still good for, the queen coming to d4 is because black was threatening rook to e2 check, right? Let's see. He was threatening this, I think, but now the rook could block with queen support. Wow. So even now, okay, we're going to take d5, I guess. Is this the idea? We take d5. We can hit our knight. Gain a tempo on the queen. And interesting game, folks. You got to admit, different piece configurations here. You got, look at it this way. You got the two rooks for the queen, and they both have a light square bishop, and black has the knight for the rook. But we have 6 pawns to white's 3, and that might be the difference. That might be the difference because, all right, even if they keep trading down, the queen is too valuable. White can't trade it, you know. He can't trade it unless he's going to try to pick up multiple pieces for it. But, you know, black has these extra pawns even then, right? And as long as these minor pieces, well, you got the rook too. As long as these 3 pieces can coordinate well, one supports the other, if you haven't noticed, right? Then it looks like with those extra pawns, you know, white doesn't really have, doesn't look like he stands much of a chance here, actually. Look at this. I mean, if you put the knight on a dark square, like on e5 maybe, you know, the white bishop can do nothing, right? He can do nothing. All right, he's gonna go after g6. I think queen c2 is coming. He goes here, right? He can't because that's just right now it's covered. So the knight keeps that out. Now the king's running. Okay, now we wanted to go. What's wrong with queen c2 now? All right, you go here. You go. There you go. The knight sunk in. That knight's great. He's on e5. No one could bother him. In the center, right? He's strong. He's good. Maybe you bring your rook up. Got to get these pawns rolling, you know. But all right, very interesting game. You got to admit, black's got an edge here. Very, very good sacrifice in the middle there. The queen. Interesting stuff. All right, but anyway, we go all the way back. That one I didn't see in analysis. It's funny, these things crop up all the time, folks. The game is so rich with ideas, right? So many possibilities. That's why we love this game. All right, so anyway, how did we even get here? Oh, yeah. So the old masters on d5, they're not even saying, we just looked at if he takes the knight first. They're saying this move, okay? So that's their recommendation. Move this guy here, I guess that's where he wants to go. We can trade here. All right, and it's a, you know, it's a whole other game, I guess. It's still a whole other game, right? Now this knight backs up the other one on e4, knight c5, right? He takes him. And you know what? One thing to mention too, you notice in these d-pawn games, when they get locked up like this, okay, the knights are very valuable, especially in this situation where black has the e4 outpost. You love a knight, and this is what black is following up with, right? Morphy throwing his knight on e4, very good. Okay, the knights are very valuable in closed games, folks, for their ability to jump. You know, they can jump over. Meanwhile, the bishops are blocked up by their own pawn. Now, the game could open up, and then the bishop is, you know, once again, very valuable. But at this point, the knights in a closed game usually outshine the bishops. And look at this. He wants to trade off this bishop for that one. That would make sense. See? You trade this guy. Look, you're even giving up. You're even over here, you're even giving this up. Right? Let me make sure if I understand this right. You go there. He attacks you. If he grabs your rook, oh, you can go for his rook. You grab a pawn. He goes there. He takes him. Let's see how this ends up. And then look at this. You don't even you don't even have to move. Look at this. If he moves his rook, he goes there, right? Now we don't want to lose our bishop. We go there. That's no good. So the knight's supporting the bishop. So okay. So we have time to take care. He takes there. We take this. He takes that. And look at this. Look at this. We win a pawn here. He takes. We take. And look at this, folks. All of a sudden, it's a rook and pawn endgame. I don't know. Probably a draw. Probably a draw the way it turns out here. We got the A pawn, but you know, so he's got an active rook, folks. I would say this is probably a draw. So anyway. Funny how it all comes down. It's like a math equation. It all comes down, you know. It's like as long as you make good moves, which Shredder is showing here, then you know, games should always scientifically, mathematically, it should always end in a draw. It's when someone makes a mistake, folks. That's what tilts the scale, you know. So okay, so on this move, b5, the old masters recommend bishop to f6. Okay, you know, it's a whole other game. It's playable for black, though. That's what they're saying. This d5 move is no big deal. All right, bishop to f6. Now, something crazy that I happened to see was, what if you do some sacrifice like this? All right, you take the bishop. All right, and now what if he goes in here? You got to always look at the impossible, folks. That's the thing that we miss at the lower levels, right? You go here, and then he takes the knight, and you'd say, but he's giving me this bishop, and then look at how good this bishop would be, right? I control the dark squares on the long diagonal for the rest of the game, but would this work, right? Knight coming in, you say, oh, that's crazy, he's sacking a piece, but now the other knight comes in backing it up, and the next thing you know, I mean, just let's say go here, well, now you got the check, right? And the next thing you know, he's coming in with attack, and now I played a bad move, obviously. But the point is, you know, he could, on this check, all right, you could go here, right? Black could play this. You see the evaluation. It's still in black's favor, right? He would attack him. Look at this. He would take another pawn, being greedy. Not even come back to help defend. But, you know, the point is, black would be okay. But you got to always look at these impossible moves. You know, you do something like this. What if he lets me take his bishop, and then he sacrifices over here? And this time for white, the attack doesn't work. But you got to admit, a lot of us at the lower level aren't even going to think of it. No, he can't take white. Then he's giving me this guy, and then but then he trades my nice knight, and then look at this. But I guess this even is better for black. So it doesn't even work, right? It still puts black, you know. It's crazy, but, you know, it still puts black up in a better position, right? He ends up getting. But look at all that you'd have to analyze, all the craziness, right? You got to be ready. Look at how the closed game, after that just took place. Look at how it ripped open. Look at the pawns are all over the place. Right? The game has many, many possibilities. You got to be ready. You got to, when you're analyzing, you got to always be ready for the unexpected, the crazy move, the move that looks impossible, folks. That's all I'm trying to state. It wouldn't work for white here, but you know, how many of you thought of that when I said bishop here? Did you even see this move? Did you even think about it? That's all I'm saying. You could say, oh, that doesn't work because I analyzed it. That's great. But if you didn't even look at it, you better be prepared before you make this move to look at it. You got to see stuff like that. After this move, you know, what are you doing? You're planning to do this, and you didn't calculate this, you're in trouble. Because your opponent may pull it out, some line. This time it doesn't work for white, okay? But I'm just giving you fair warning. Try to look when you think you found a good move. Always look at the impossible, folks. Okay, always look at the impossible, because sometimes it is possible. All right, so here we go. The knight comes in, and what is Magridian do? Well, he chops that guy off. He chops him off. Morphy takes back with the pawn. Just to note, you don't want to hang on to the bishop here. take with the knight. Next thing you know, you lost the piece, right? The pawn fork, because the bishop down here is protecting it, right? You end up winning. You end up winning a piece. There you go. Look, you got a knight. Where did white's knight go? In the box, right? Okay. So the bishop takes. Morphy takes back with the pawn. And now the knight's hit. So the knight, Shredder likes it here. Well, Augustus brings it to D2. Attacking the pawn, right? They're attacking it. Morphy bringing the knight up, the other one in reserve. Here he comes to F6. Now this knight helps support the E4. Now the pawn, it's not an outpost, but the pawn, key pawn, up on E4 in enemy territory. They got to hang on to that guy. You don't want to lose him, okay? So now, knight to F6. Augustus brings his king to H2. And Morphy brings the queen to D7. They're maneuvering again in the closed game, folks. Maneuvering. Here we go. Here comes the rook. Okay? Ingredient thinks you bring a rook. Remember the queen rook to C2 and swing it over? Well, he's picking his file, the G file. He wants to rip open the G file. Rook to G1. Here comes Morphy supporting that pawn, that key pawn. That's his whole bread and butter. The strategy is his positional chess right here. He's got to hang on to that wedge pawn, that one up there in enemy territory, right? On E4. So D5 supports that. Here comes Rook to C2, getting ready to swing over. Okay, here we go. Look at Morphy now. He's playing G5. Okay, G5, and look at the knight leaping back. Why do you think he does that, folks? Well, you're going to see. After the pawn takes, Augustus taken back, and now you got bishop to D6 for Morphy. Now the dark square bishop trying to get into the game. Attacking the F pawn. Here comes Augustus playing G3 to support that F pawn. Okay, now you see. Let's see. You see. What do you see? All right, here you go. Look. C6. Why, folks? Well, now that we got the pawns, right? You got this one taken here, right? If the white pawn, if the white pawn takes here, black's ready to take back and undouble these pawns, right? And now you got, again, pawn support for E4, right? So, if you're doing this, right, that's your plan. If white was to take on D5, you take with your other E pawn, okay, and undouble them. And now this guy on, I'm just making a move. This guy here, his future is not going to be on this diagonal. You could see that, right? He wants to move it over here and get some play, aiming at the king side with the queen, no less, right? Okay, now, so what you're doing with this move, with C6, is you're adding, okay, after this, you got, the pawn comes up to help protect F4, and now you got this move, C6, adding more support, because the bishop is going to reposition itself on C8. So you're really helping support D5, okay? You're boosting up D5 with C6. Okay, now, here you go. Look, this was Mongredian's idea. By capturing with the pawn over here, like this, okay, this is why he moves the knight back to F1. Because after the trade of pawns on F4, now he has not the outpost, but this beautiful square E3 for the knight, okay, which blockades. If you haven't noticed, that E pawn now that the pawns trade, folks, what is it? What is this? After these pawns trade on F4, what is the E pawn? A protected pass pawn, folks. That's very valuable for black in the end game. That could mean the difference. That pawn could run in for a queen, and it's protected right now. There's no white pawns that could stop him. He could come right in the end game. Nobody's watching him. He can't. No one's guard. No other white pawns are guarding him. So now the pieces have to guard. And after c6, Mongolian throws the knight. Blockade. Knights are the best blockading piece. Okay? They block that pawn from marching up for now. Okay? So, at this point, Mongolian sinks the knight on e3 to blockade that pawn. All right. Now, rook over to g8 for Morphy. Here comes the queen rook over to g2. Like we said, here you go. Now you're understanding the moves, right? They're putting them together. Okay. Morphy swinging his queen rook to f8. So Morphy's got two rooks side by side on the G and F file, while Mongolian has the two rooks doubled on the G file. Okay, let's see how this plays out. Here you go. Knight coming, more maneuvering now. Knight to e2. That's to support f4, to guard f4, because Mongolian with the double rooks on the G file wants to push the G pawn and rip open the G file. Get it? He wants to push the G pawn, but he can't just leave the F pawn hanging. Okay, so he maneuvers the knight to e2 to defend f4 to be able to push the G pawn. Morphy, like we said, repositions his minor piece to c8. Now, Morphy is threatening e5. Look, e5 right here, folks, right? Why? Because, I don't know, just do some dumb moves. You fall asleep over there. Boom! You get hit with checkmate. You see that? All right. It's obvious. I know you've seen it. I throw these dumb pawn moves over here. The A pawn, right? The B pawn, of course, it's not going to happen. But I'm just showing it to you, right? So this bishop coming back. Oh, look at this. You know, this could be trouble. Now, here we go. Well, he's launching that G pawn, but now it helps to protect this battery, right? The H pawn and G pawn stifle this one, right? The light square battery. There's no threat of this now. But because of this move, you see what happens, the yin and yang, folks. Light square block, you're blocking the light square threat. But now Morphy shifting to the dark squares, queen over to c7. Now what, folks? Now the focus is on what? It's on this one, on the F pawn. On the F pawn, I can't even move it or touch it because it's pinned to the white king over here, right? Okay, so what does Augustus do? Well, he brings, only the knight's protecting it. Now Morphy's got two on it, the queen and bishop. So he brings a rook over to f2, supporting this. Now it becomes a fight against f4. And if you notice, he can't push it because it's pinned, the king, right? Not only that, black has this guy kind of controlling f5 for now, right? Okay, but it's pinned. It's absolutely against the rules. White can't push it. He's got to defend it. Morphy now, piling up, look at this, by moving the knight. Now he piles up with this rook, right, on f8. Okay, the queen rook, remember, slide in f8. Here you go. This is why he kept a rook on each file, because this is where the F pawn, the G pawn. This is what he's doing. He's putting the pieces together, the power of the pieces. He's combining them with his strategy. See how it works, folks? He's putting the pressure on his opponent. Either way, he's setting it up. He's got his pieces ready. All right, here we go. Now, after the knight comes back, so now you got the queen. You got the bishop, the rook. Now, white needs to add another defender. He moves the queen. Now, this ain't to bring the rook, right? But he moves the queen to f1. All right, here you go. Look at this. Morphy bringing the rook up. Why do you think he's doing that, folks? He's going to slide the other rook from g8 to f8, double up, add another piece to the attack. But now, he didn't add a piece yet. He moved his rook up. He's going to. So Augustus feels, now's my chance. I got to get my king. I got to unpin that pawn. All right, here he goes. He puts another piece to action. They're all piling up on the F pawn. Now, can he push it, folks? Can he push this pawn? This would be dangerous, I think. I don't know. Let's see. If he pushed it, they trade, right? Here comes the knight. Let's do the knight here, huh? The knight comes in over there, maybe. He has three defending. He got queen, rook f2, Knight e3 protecting the pawn. We have the 2 doubled rooks, and we got the bishop on c8. So it's 3 defending, 3 attacking, so we can't take it yet. We'd have to put another one on it. And I guess if we go here, we could push it maybe. He could bring the other knight to help defend maybe, you know. So this would be a whole other fight. But look at the action. Look at the action of the bishops, folks. Look, this guy, right? This guy. I mean, they come to life now. Which direction are the black pawns pointing? The pawn chain, right? They're pointing towards that king, right? Black is playing in that direction. That's usually a clue on where you got to play. Okay? Look at white's bishop on b2. Blocked in by his own d pawn, right? Not great scope. So I mean, you got black really looks like he's in a better position here, but yet the evaluation is equal. So maybe he could hang on. Maybe they trade off, or white could hang on here. But anyway, he doesn't push it. Maybe that was the better play, to push, right? But anyway, Augustus hangs in there. His move is good. Nonetheless, here we go. What does he do? So after this, he brings like I said, he brings the other knight. He brings the other knight to defend f4. All right, look at this. Now Morphy switching it up. Look, bishop to a6. Now he's attacking another section of the board over here. He's attacking this c pawn, right? Now, if he was to take, I mean, we would take back. Okay, he'd like to take this way, I guess, to open the c file. Now we can penetrate down, right? We destroy one of those defenders, right? We come down, maybe. Look, can we win it now? I guess we can. I guess we can win it now. We win the f pawn, right? He doubles up. I mean, he protects. They double up. Here we go, right? And there it's a game, and we're up a bit. We won a pawn, I believe. We got a protected passed pawn here. End game winning chances, and I think we got the extra pawn, right? It's 6 against 5. All right, so there you go. Right, we're doing fine there. So he can't take on d5. He can't take, and I mean, I don't know if we'd want to take, because even if, let's say, you just do a silly move, like even if we take here, that might not be good, because look at our pawn structure now. We got 2 isolated e pawns now, right? We need a pawn on the d file. Like even if we win this guy, it might not be the evaluation. They're giving it to us, but these pawns are weak. This guy isn't a protected e4 pawn. Isn't a protected pass. This one's not a protected pass pawn anymore. I mean, we could sink him in. Now he acts as just a big pawn. But anytime this knight moves, right, we would be ready to play a discovered check with e3. The way it is. So who knows, right? It looks like black's doing better here, but the point is, Morphy, bishop a6. Okay, putting pressure on over here now on the queen side. Okay, so what does Morphy do? Look at this. I mean, what does Augustus do? He swings the queen to c1. He's still protecting f4, and he's influencing this side of the board too, right, on the c file. But it says right here, white defends himself well against the consequences of his 27th move, which the 27th move, folks, was g4, which put the pressure on f4 after that, right? So here we go. Now let's see what happened. Morphy moves his queen to e7. He's either ready to swing up here in the attack. I mean, the knight's on g2, and he's also putting pressure with the bishop, dark square battery, on the a3 pawn, right? So, all right, here comes the knight. The knight over here for Augustus, leaping up to g3. Morphy moves his knight to g7, and the rook swings here to e1. Here comes Morphy pushing this one. Look at this. Now, watch how this opens up now. You got c5, okay? And if he takes, I guess Morphy takes back. He hits the rook over there, and then I guess he can't advance this one yet. Oh, but what he do? This guy is blunted for now. I guess he goes back, and he takes control of this diagonal again, getting ready to push. Just to say, there becomes a whole. You'll see it later. Okay, this is like foreshadowing. All right, of what's to come. The bishop on b7 opposite the enemy king. You're going to see the tactics that get involved with these pawns being pushed up the center of the board. Okay, so you start to get these ideas that actually do crop up in the game. Okay, but Augustus doesn't take on c5. He decides to move the knight back and support, b4. So what ends up happening after that is Morphy brings the bishop back, right, opposite the enemy king. And that forces white at this point. He feels Augustus trades at this point. They trade the pawns. And now, because the e-pawn, again, look, folks, this e-pawn now is over here, helping support the key pawn, the key square in this whole game, e4, right? Now the key pawn in the whole game, the e4 pawn. Now look at this. Now that the e-pawn, this one on e6 takes, now Augustus feels he can push this, and he finally can now get his pieces back in the game instead of babysitting f4. Now they could leap back into fighting. That was the hope anyway, but look at this now. Knight to e6. He can't take here, folks, or he loses the rook. Okay? He loses the exchange. No good. No good. So he can't take him. Okay. So now the knight from g2 leaps up, and they trade them. Let's see. They trade the knights. Here we go. They trade the knights. Knight takes back. Okay? And now we got rook to c8 opposite the enemy queen, right over here. Okay, now he's threatening to take on d4 with a tempo on the queen. Okay, so anyway, it says here by the old masters, not sound, though he wins by it. Okay, we're going to see what happens. Queen gets off that file, and Morphy takes anyway. All right, opening up the C file now. He's got his rook on the C file. And if he was to take with the queen, would be a mistake, because then you can throw the bishop here, and once the queen moves, I mean, look at this. Wait, look at this crazy move. He's going to leave that there. He's going to leave that there because look at that. If you take, he checks, right? The king moves. Now remember, he's going to recapture the bishop on d4, so we don't want to give him a tempo by moving on the dark squares, right? Oh, but he gets, okay, gets a tempo anyway by taking the rook. You take back, and he takes the bishop. And black is still ahead, but I guess he gets that's the best way out of it, maybe. All right, black is still up, though. Black is still winning this, up 3. Okay. You can win the a pawn, I guess. But look at this. Basically, after this, all right, he would move. He would move here, and you lose the exchange. See that? You lose the exchange. And look at this. It puts. Oh, this is why, folks. I was going to say it puts black up even more than the last line. We were only up 3 and change. Look at this, though. You get the idea that we've been talking about. You attack the queen, tempo, right? Now, why can't you take, folks? Look at this one. This is one to remember. Put this into your files, folks, in your memory banks. Check! The bishop, folks, on b7. Look at this move. You uncover the pawns. Look, get him off this diagonal now. Boom. If he takes, you push the last one with check, and now you're going to take the queen next move. Look at that. The pawn captures. The only other idea is to block it, right? And even then you lose. You can't even just win the bishop for it, at least. Look at it. Killer move. Now on this, the queen's going to have to move. You don't want to take the pawn, but then, I mean, you could push up with check, or they like this. He likes this one, check. Yeah, if you block here, you end up losing the knight. So I guess what about knight going back? What about knight going back like this? Well, now you're pushing your pawns up. It's pretty much over. You could even trade on G2, right? You could even trade on G2 at this point. Let's say he just tries to get out of it, right? I mean, you don't have to release the pressure, but look at this. You can just do this, right? If he takes, you come down, you're going to win that guy. That's what I was seeing. You're going to win this guy, and you got the pawns, right? What's there to worry about? You got the extra rook, you got the pawns coming down. All right, okay. The whole point is this beautiful tactic with the bishop on b7. You see how it opens up then? All right, so anyway, rook here, Augustus with queen to e3. Morphy takes. All right, not queen takes. Forget it. Right, bishop there. It's all over. All right, he plays bishop takes. All right, he's still in this game, folks. Here's where the error occurs. All right, here's where the error occurs, because Morphy now with the bishop taking on d4 leaves the a pawn hanging. Right, so Morphy grabs it up, gobbles that a pawn. Now Augustus is behind the pawn, and he goes in and takes this one. Feels, well, I'll even it up. I can take the b6 pawn. But that was a grave mistake, and that's where he loses, folks. Doesn't look like much of a mistake, right? You're trying to keep up with the Joneses. He won a pawn. Well, I could win one back, and it's 4-4, right? The pawns are equal, and we're getting close to the end game, but doesn't work out. Here's what he should have played, folks. Don't worry about that pawn. We're gambiteers anyway, right? Look at this. Knight going in, sinking it on a beautiful outpost for white on e6. Now what's going to follow is g5, folks, and you're going to rip it open. Okay, now this is the best move for black. I think it keeps him in it. But let's say you want to, oh God, I don't want that knight there. I'm going to trade him off. Once you do this, you're going to trade off the rook for the knight, so you figure, why not? Look, he gets this, check. All right, you're going to lose this rook anyway. You were planning to. But look at what happens now, right? Rook comes in, check. And you got nothing, folks. You got nothing. You're dead. You're dead in the water. Look at this. This is the best thing you can do. Why? Because if you move, look at this queen here, and mate is inevitable. It is inevitable. Why? Because, all right, he wants to mate. He wants to mate. Let's say he could come to g8. You go back here to block this one, right? And he comes down and he mates you there. You see that? Because the bishop, folks, the dark square bishop's on d4. All right? So, once the queen comes here, I mean, what are you going to do, right? You try to block it now. Big deal. Now you got this one, right? And then when he moves, look at this. You're going to win the queen this way. You can't even take, because then he mates you there, right? You go here. Oh, look at this. Look at this. So embarrassing. Look at this. What are you going to do, right? There you go. You get him that way. I mean, that's it, folks. You can see the danger. Once g5, the knight sinks in, right? The knight sinks in, and this is what could happen to you, right? You try to trade him off. All right, you take here. Oh, look at this. Look at this now. Now he's got the knight fork, right? You don't want to give up the exchange that way, or you do, or whatever you're going to do. Look, you got to, I guess, right? He's going to set up a discovery, right? You try to stop that. He takes anyway. He takes it. What can you do, folks? Look at this. You're trying to monkey wrench your way out of it. You're trying to attack his queen. You're hoping you take this one off, right? You're hoping for this idea, right? To save you. But I don't, look, he doesn't have to. You do this, he doesn't have to take, does he? Now he likes to take. All right, you take here. Where do we go? What do we do? Check. He takes back. March this one. He marches this one in. We get the check over there. We get the check. He blocks it. We take with check, right? Can we get a perpetual out of this? I don't know. I don't think so. No, we can't. Mate and 9. Look at this. We go here, out of all places. The knight just gobbles you up. What if you slide over here with the check? You got nothing, right? Mate's coming. I don't know. You do this. Check. He goes there. You go here with check. He comes up. And you got the queen down to f8 next is mate. Well, what could you do? You can't even check over here. Look. Oh, let's get our queen. No, I don't think so. Look. Now the knight delivers mate. Look at this. All right, so it's, you know, that's just a way it could go. That knight sinking in on e6 is so dangerous, right? Once he comes in with this move, the only move that keeps black in the game, I think, is this one. Okay? And now he gets to take back here because the rook's not on the c file, because that's key to what black's going to do now. All right, and we're going to see why. All right, so anyway, this was white's best chance. Okay, hopping the knight into the outpost, and black's best move to hang in there was this, rook to g8. He can win the pawn back. We go after the rook over there. All right, he repositions it there, and there you go, right? It's still a game now. It's still a game. It's close. You put black up a little bit, I guess because of that beautiful outpost for the knight. And if white wants to trade it off, well, he's given up his beautiful tactic that he's been storing up, right? He would have to give this guy up, else give up the exchange. So it's a game. Who knows which way this could go, right? But here's the fatal mistake. Here's the fatal mistake. After Morphy grabs the a pawn, Augustus, like we said, instead of sinking the knight in, he takes the b pawn. Now Morphy with bishop to b4, attacking the rook, threatening to win the exchange. Okay. So what does he do? He throws the rook to d1, putting pressure on this maybe, right, with the knight on f4. But the question may be, because now when black comes down with the rook, and he's got a tempo on the queen, so the question might be, well, why does he let the rook come down? Why not, when the rook's attacked by the bishop, why not throw it onto c1? The reason is, let's see, first you check here. All right, this is how he did it. You would take like this. Can't take with the queen, folks, or he hangs this guy with check nonetheless, right? All right, so he has to take with the bishop. Now you take here. All right, it's check. He has to take back. Now the pawn is not blockaded by the queen. Blockaded, remember? Queen has to take the rook, take back. Now he gets to move up with check, folks. With check, this guy, right, beaming down. There's our tactic again. The pawn is able to gobble up that rook. We win a rook. We win a rook outright. Okay, for what? For 2 pawns. Big deal. We're threatening all kinds of things now, right? We got the dark square battery formed, right? We could just trade them off. Oh, look at that. We go for what? We go right there, right? We go in. I mean, what else could he do? The queen coming down, the queen coming up, she's not protecting this anymore. So by coming up, we get this guy in. He goes there, right? Oh, look at it. Bishop supports rook to e7. Okay, now we get there we go. Look at this. If he goes back, we threaten to take the pinned knight, right? Threaten to take the pinned knight. And it's really over. This is all he's got. No big deal. Right? Okay, he stops that. There we go. It's still pinned there. It's all over, right? It's all over. Okay. Not for nothing, with the bishop pinning the knight, right? We're threatening, right here, right? If the king goes there, pinning the knight, we're threatening queen to g2 mate. And there's no way he could protect g2. No, he can't do anything. We're threatening queen to g2 mate. Okay, knight is pinned. All right. So if on this check he would come up, and even then, yeah, we're gonna clear the e7 square for the bishop. It's there, right? Can't we put... Oh, he blocked with f6. Right, you could play this one maybe. Yeah, we could win him. All right, so we're easily winning, right? I know I'm getting into it, but on my check, what if he does this, right? We would take him anyway. He takes you. You go here. Look at this, the double check, folks. Rook and bishop on b7. Right? Look at this. He's got to only square, pull back, discover check. Here we go. Boom. All right, there you go. To completion, right? Beautiful stuff. All right, so he can't move the rook to the c file is the point here. After he takes there, we attack the rook. The rook can't move to c1, else we push the pawn, clearing the diagonal for the light square bishop on b7. See that? And then once we take rooks, there you go. And then we win. Boom, we win down the rook, extra rook for those 2 pawns. All right, there you go. So he brings the rook not to c1. He brings it to d1, figuring the pressure, the d pawn, I guess. Well, here comes the rook. c3, attacking the queen. Rook to c3. What move was that? 43? Okay, there it is. And now the queen moves up to d4. All right. Queen threatening h3, but you got the knight protecting it on f4 for now. But you got the rook threatening. He could take it. Maybe he could sack the exchange. You win. You get the attack going, right? And right now, it's the queen that's the queen that's keeping those pawns from moving up and unleashing the light square bishop. We'll see how that changes soon. So now, okay, here comes the rook sliding over to g1. And Morphy brings his rook over because he's threatening to take on g4, I believe. If you just make like a silly move, I don't know. He would grab this pawn. I mean, you got, oh, here's an interesting line that occurs, right? You'd say, oh, look at this, right? He goes there. We check. We come up. And it's pretty close here. It shows it as being even. He would sack over here. We come in. We would win this one, huh? And we get these pawns rolling now. He's got to watch, because once the e4 pawn moves up to e3, we got the light square bishop battery, and we're threatening. Oh, he's got the queen check there. He's got the queen check here. Oh boy, he'd have to. Would he stay with the perpetual? Would he stay with the perpetual? Maybe. I don't know. Well, okay, he goes there. Maybe we go with the perpetual. He goes here. He can't step up, else we move the pawn up now with tempo. See that? And look at that. We take over. All of a sudden, all it takes is one move, folks, and it collapses, right? He takes there. We could block so we don't lose the rook. Get there. We trade. He takes. We got this guy. All right. So, you know, one little slip. But it looks to me at this point they hold on. Okay? Either one of them can go for perpetual. They might have to. So there's also this move where he takes here, and then you take, and he takes, and you take. You could take with check, and then when he moves over, you take with check again. But look at what happens. He blocks, and now he's threatening, folks. He turned the tables on you. Because your queen, once it moves off the G file, look, he doesn't have a check down here because you got your queen covering D1. So once he gets off the file, right, he's got mate on G7, supported by that rook on G2. He blocked you, but he also set up mate threats on the open G file. See how crazy this game could turn, right? It could turn on a dime. You're going for the attack. You're sacking, right? And here he is. You're winning back pieces and pawns, and then all of a sudden he blocks, and you're doomed. You're doomed. So, and even these type of ideas, like I think this was a crazy one, right? He goes here, he goes there. Yeah, he wins back. You're trying to get him to do this. Look, if he goes here, now you diverted him, and I guess you could go for perpetual. That's what it shapes up to. Because if he blocks, right, you take. You're still busted, I guess. You're still busted. But the idea is you're trying for. He takes, and maybe you could do. I guess you don't have the time to sack, and then you see you don't have the discovered check. Your pawns are one. They're one. Let's see here. Let's see. If he takes and you do this one, you could come and check here, and then if he takes there, it would be a mistake, right? But still, wait. He still wins. Still wins. Yeah, there's no way to set up this. Doesn't matter. He takes here, right? Mouse slip. He takes there, you take there, and he's up a rook at this point. All right, so there's no way out of it. So these ideas don't work. Watch out. Your opponent could still turn the tables on you. Boom! Rook to G2, and you're doomed, right? Nothing left. Okay. I just wanted to point that out. How it could, you think you got it you're in the driver's seat. Look out. So all right, Rook to G7. Rook to G7, and now the Queen slips up to E5. All right, Morphy. Queen support. Rook to E7. Queen goes back. And now the bishop gets into the game here. Dark square bishop attacking the defender of H3, right? But by going to D6, attacking him, he left his rook hanging on C3, right? So now the queen protects H3. Is it all lost, folks? Is it all for nothing? Did Morphy just blow it? No. Because remember, the queen was blockading those pawns. Remember that idea? We're focusing too much on H3. Remember the other tactic, folks. The light square bishop still waiting, still lying in wait in the tall grass on B7, right? Queen takes rook is a mistake now, because now D4 attacks the queen. The queen takes the pawn. Okay. Now the bishop takes the knight, defender of H3. The queen is on D4. He's not on C3, right? All right. So what's going to happen now? Queen takes will be mate. If he takes here, queen takes mate, right? I mean, if he tries to go over here to defend, folks, what happens? Pawn up. Check. Check, folks. Check. By the bishop over here, right? If he blocks with this guy, now the rook is pinned on G2, and the queen comes down and gives mate. The rook on G2 is pinned by the light square bishop. There's no way to block that queen check on E1, right? Mate. If he's trying to do it, he's trying to save a move at least. All right, if he tries to block this way, we take on this side, right? And we made him that way. Rook on G2 is pinned. He can't block, right? All right, so there you go. So look at how this is shaping up. Bishop takes knight, okay? The only move, there really is none, but to extend the game a little further, Augustus plays king to G2, right? The king supporting H3, so the queen can't take. But look at this again. He's on the light squares, folks. E3! Discovered check by who, folks? The light square bishop on B7, huh? Out of nowhere, this piece comes to life. All right. He tries to block. At this point, all right, it's all over. After E3, Morphy secures the win. Augustus he totally tilts the king over. He had enough. He had enough. So third match game goes to Morphy. All right. So there you go. Morphy won. Let's see. Let me make sure now. Morphy won the second game, and the first game was a draw. So there you go. Morphy's up 2-0. All right. What could happen here? What are you talking about? Where's the win? You're saying, right? Well, he can't go anywhere except here. He'd have to move, right? He can't block. He can't block it. He goes here. Look at this move, folks. Queen check, right? The rook on f3 is pinned. You got to remember. Remember that bishop down there on b7, folks. He can only go there, and then queen to h2. Mate on the dark squares, right? Supported by who, folks? The bishop on f4. All right. Forget about it. This is beautiful stuff. All right, this is what, our attacks are made of, dreamed about, right? We wish we could do this. All right, he goes here. It's the only square, right, folks? Well, now, boom. Queen takes f2. Supported by the pawn and its mate, right? We wish we could play mating attacks like this, right, folks? Let me tell you, you stick with me, kid. You stick with me through the rest of these games. We're only on 62 going on 63, folks. We got 300 to go, baby. This stuff is going to be, you're going to be sweating this stuff out of your pores. These attacks are going to leap out. Your opponents are going to have no hope. They're going to quit playing this game if you brutalize and beat them over the head with a club like this with your tactics and combinations. Forget about it. They got no hope, folks. You're going to be a storm. A tornado, kid. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be a whirlwind going in there. You're going to grab trophies and prize money. Forget about it. They got no chance against you. No chance. Come on. You got to stick with it, folks, every day. You got to look at this stuff. If you're a nut like me, a chestnut, right? There is nothing in life except chess. You got to understand this. This is what I'm going for. Morphy knew it back in the day. Fisher knew it. Everybody knows it. Who's worth their salt, right? There you go. So stick with me, okay? You'll beef up on all these tactics and attacks. Be a Morphy disciple. Carry the torch, baby. Carry the torch. I'm here to push you on and light that fire. All right. I hope I'm doing it. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking to 1 or 2 kids, but I don't even care if it's 1 or 2. That's all I want to do in life. Be influential. You got to influence somebody before you go, before you leave this world. Right, folks? All right, enough of the philosophy and the deep stuff. We'll see you next time on Morphy's Games of Chess with Game 63 coming up.